Hi, I'm Donna, and I'm here with Pastor Josh, and this is Jesus Centric Leadership. Today we're going to talk about the invitation and challenge in leadership. And Pastor, I never thought about invitation into leadership. I've always thought about the challenge of leadership. But what does it mean to invite somebody into leadership and then the challenge of leadership?
Well, I mean, I right away, again, Jesus-centric leadership, I go to Jesus. So it's interesting, like what Jesus said to the initial disciples. He said, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people, right? And it's almost as that invitation and challenge. And I don't know, I think sometimes where we struggle with both, but sometimes I think we struggle to do it clearly. I know in my ministry, like when sometimes there's the invitation, right? I'll invite in because like I need this person to do this. But then I think sometimes where I fail is the challenge. I want them to say yes, that I forget the challenge of it. But I think Jesus did both at the same time. Like it wasn't an invitation unless there was a challenge. And sometimes we want to fill roles, or we want people to do things, and so we just kind of invite them in and say, yeah, it'll be good, you'll be great, and almost let them do the internal challenge. But I think more and more, and I haven't figured that out, but how do we, ask people for more?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in when you were saying that, like, I got to find somebody to do something. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
It's not just filling, hey, who's going to usher, who's going to work our welcome desk. It's really being intentional to grow leadership in someone.
Yeah.
And then to set them free to go do that with someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want these leadership groups to be under us forever, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest failure. It's that we're just looking, and I think sometimes in the church we do need to like fill roles or fill places. But really what we need is more people who are, following Jesus and wanting to invite others to do the same. Whether that be people that don't believe in Jesus, whether that be people at their church. But we need more people to really enter into that, because the invitation and the challenge really is follow Jesus, and how do I help more people know about him, right? And that's, and Jesus is interesting. He made it really, really simple and really hard at the same time. And I think sometimes we actually make it easier on us and on other people by just, here, fill this role or do this.
Right.
Like that's an easy yes, no. But what Jesus is inviting us into is much more simple but yet complex.
And not everyone is made to be a leader. Not everyone was a disciple. There was a select group that studied under a rabbi. He chose them. We've chosen some of these people that we've built relationships with to help them grow in their ability to lead. So we got to kind of differentiate a little bit between somebody who's called to serve and somebody who's really made to be a leader. Yes?
Yeah, I think at some point, but I think leadership isn't just defined by our lens either. That's the thing that I would say. So I think like some people that are listening to this have been invited to leadership circles. Some you'll be invited in the future. Some of you though are stepping up and leading, even though you haven't been invited. And I think there's not we can't make this into a different criteria, but it's really that call that all of us have, that call in our life. How can I make an impact, and what am I called to do for the kingdom?
Right.
And I think so I would make sure and differentiate that. But yeah, I think
it seems though that we're kind of in this gray area.
Okay.
Because I feel like the question I'm asking is really targeting at leaders, how we raise up leaders. What is the invitation of leaders? And you've got a little bit of a, evangelistic piece to it. Like, hey, as you're called to serve, but not everybody's called to be a leader, right?
You're not called to lead in every way, but I think, again, part of it is how I think we And we can go back to actually those who are called to lead in kind of a standard definition of leadership, but leadership is even just leading one person one step forward. And so that's kind of where, you're wanting to get to this, well, who are our top leaders? And I'm wanting to stay in this vagueness of, no, everybody's called to lead in one way. And I would say if you're not, that to be a Christian is to be a leader. To be a Christian is to be someone who's making disciples. To be a Christian is someone who's called to evangelize. And so I think, but at the same time, we want this podcast to be for people who have a desire to lead
at a different level.
And I think that's fine as well too. And that's where I would say the invitation and the challenge for those of you who have leadership ability, whether it's a spiritual gift of leadership. I don't have the spiritual gift of leadership, but yet God has called me to lead a church, to challenge people, right?
That's super interesting. I'm going to jump in because I follow you. Mm-hmm. You are my leader, right? You're the leader of the staff, of this ministry, of this team. Mm-hmm. So to hear you say, I don't have the spiritual gift of leadership, that kind of shocks me a little bit because I see you as a leader. Help me understand that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think there's a spiritual gift of leadership. There's the kind of type A type leaders, and a lot of times we see that as a spiritual gift of leadership. That, like for you, you can walk into a room and say, we need to do this, this, and this, and we need to fix this, and here's how we're going to do it. And gather the people and go do it. You can do that really naturally. For me to be able to do that, I've got to sit back, collect my thoughts, then speak into people, which I think actually in our setting works really well because I can do that with staff very intentionally and very systematically. But to say that every leader has to be the person that can walk in the room, see a problem, and make a solution, if every leader was like that, we'd have no leader, or we have very few leaders.
Right.
But I think it's being intentional about how has God called you to lead, and that's why I go back to that. Your leadership ability isn't based on being a type A person that can walk into a room and say, this is what we need to do. Right. Your leadership is something that God has given you a heart and a passion to make a difference in his people's lives. Yeah. And so how are you going to accept the invitation and the challenge of what that means for you?
Yeah.
And not just sit in the background and say, well, if everybody sits in the background and says, I'm not a leader, I'm just going to serve, we've got a problem as a church.
Right, which is why we're talking about this over the next 2.5 months.
Yeah.
We're really going to dig deep into taking that next step of leadership because we have great leaders, but we also have the need to help people take that next step and to see it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not ready to take it, but to at least envision, what does it mean for me to take the next step of leadership in the church? I also agree with what you're saying. I like how you kind of differentiated that. There's all different types of leaders.
Yeah.
There were 12 disciples. One fell away.
Yep.
And all of them had very unique, different styles.
Yeah.
Starting with Peter, right?
Yeah. And again, I want to... And we talked about this in the very first podcast, but I think there's a mission drift in the church that has happened because we kind of see that that staff are the experts, that they do the work. But it's interesting, Jesus called these people and said, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. He didn't say that I'm going to call you so that you can be in this community and you can get fed and fat and happy here. He didn't say that. He gave them this invitation, this come follow me, and this challenge. You're going to do something, and it's probably going to be hard.
And then I'm going to leave.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, come follow me. I'm going to equip you. We're going to do some amazing things. It's going to blow your mind. Yeah. And then I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be martyred probably.
Yeah.
He didn't give them the whole vision of what was about to happen. But yeah, it was a ride.
Yeah, and how does that look for, and I guess from your vantage point, like how would that look for us as a church? Because I don't think this would be good. We could do this. We could be like, we're gonna do podcasts for 4 years. Then Donna and I are gonna move on to another church.
Right.
And you as the lay leaders, you get to carry it forward.
Yeah. Good
right?
luck.
Good luck. Have fun. Like, and I don't think we're gonna do that, and we're called to do that. But what, in your mind, how does that look for us as staff to invite and challenge, and then kind of leave you on your own? Now, not leave the church, but kind of leave you on your own and let you lead. Like, how would that look in your mind?
I think I'm going to take a step back from that for a second. But my style of leadership has definitely changed over the years. I think there was a season where I was the doer, and then I think there was a season of more equipping and hey, come alongside. Let's do this together. I mean, I see that with our students on mission trips. I see it with our students in VBS, different ways that they've led. But it was really interesting. I met with Courtney and Thomas the other day. And Courtney came to me and was very excited about the opportunity she has to come back to Peace for a couple of years. And she has a real heart for the 20-something ministry. Yeah. And so I sat in a room for a while with her, and we just visioned and we dreamed. And then I said, well, hey, let me go get Thomas. Yeah. And then I'm going to leave you guys in the room, and you guys figure it out. And then I want you to spend the next few months praying about it. Yeah. And let's see where God goes with us. And I think in the past, I would have taken the bull by the horns and let's go and let's do. But I think to go back to your point, I think I've seen how God has changed me as a leader. Softened, rounded corners, all of that. I still haven't arrived. I think this side of heaven, I'm constantly going to be learning about leadership and evolving as a leader. But I've seen the ability to set people free and not to have my hand in it as much better. And that's really what Jesus did. Yeah. He trained them. He equipped them. He loved them well. Yeah. And then he left them to do the ministry. He did not stay there with his hand in it.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for us as a church, and it's important for you as listeners to understand that the best thing we can do is equip you and then support you as you use your passions. Right. Because I think at some level, like if it's my invitation and my challenge, then it revolves around me. But I think ultimately it's Jesus saying to you, come follow me, and then I'm going to send you out to fish for people. And I think it's at some level, it's my job to equip you, but it's not my job to find what your passion is. It's not my job to say, you should really think about doing this. Yes. It's my job for, to equip you like Courtney, and then for Courtney to come and say, this is what I see. This is what peace could be. And that's messier and harder, but I think it's the culture that we ultimately want to have where we have people that are stepping up and saying, I'll use this example. Ty came to me and said, hey, I think we need a prayer meeting that we have at church. Well, great. Like, when do you want to do that? Right. And it's like, I have a lot of trust in Ty. I think he is going to do a great job. But he had a passion for something. How do I give permission? And then now, how do I support him as he does that? Right. But he sees that as something we need. And I think that's really what I would encourage you if you're listening. Like, where do you see God using you this next year? And how can we support you and give you permission to let that happen? Yeah, and continue to walk with you. Like, we don't want to just cut you loose. Like, I'm gonna be praying for Courtney and Thomas as they pray that through. You're gonna be walking a little bit with Ty and checking in on him and praying for him and supporting him. But we got to take that next step, and I think that's. The reason for today's was, as we were talking about topics that we wanted to talk about, we've got these groups, we're training, we're walking with, we're having some really great conversation. And what are we doing next? Yeah. Because if we don't get that pipeline moving of leaders, then we're just comfortable and we're just sitting here hanging out. Yeah, absolutely. I think it really is that. And I'm not, and I'll say this, and you can push back, Donna, if you agree, but I'm not sure it's my job even to push you to that, but it's my job to encourage you and say that you need to search and find what that is for you. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. I agree. I agree.
Because I think I could hold your hand, right?
Right.
And again, part of that's not my leadership style, so maybe that's coming from the wrong place. But I'm not sure that it's my job to hold your hand to get you that place that you're leading. Right. It's my job to kind of encourage you to begin to pray about what that is. Now, use your leadership style and push back on that if you need to.
No, because I use the word push because I do tend to push a little bit, right? And people who are listening right now are laughing in their car, right? Yes, she does. But I think if I pushed Courtney, I don't know that she would have reached that point. Yeah. But because Courtney grew up in a culture that gave her opportunities to use her leadership, grow in her leadership. She went to college, found another place to grow and use that leadership. Now she's ready to just blossom. So I don't really mean push, but I do mean be intentional that we're not the beginning and the end of leadership at Peace, that we really are seeing the fruit of these groups and what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I think the difference in my mind, as you kind of were talking about that, my push should be that as a Christian, as someone who's blessed with leadership ability, you should be leading. That's what I get to push. Right, I get to say this is, if you're listening to this, you're interested in leadership. It probably means that whether you're in our congregation or not, that like God has given you the gift of leadership, then go find somewhere to lead.
Yes.
But if I push you into this position of leadership, that's going to be contingent on me. And I want it to be contingent on what God has called you to do. And so I think you need to have the intentionality to say, decide where you want to lead.
Yes.
Where you want to lead, maybe. And again, I'm not saying I don't want it to all revolve around church either. Mm-hmm. That might mean you're going to lead a little bit different in your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I'm on my
your family.
I'm on my HOA board. That's a valuable place that I can have an impact. In your family, how are you going to lead a little more intentionally? Like if you're listening to that and that's where you feel called to, do that first. Do that first. If you feel called to lead a little differently in your church, do that. But what is it for you as a listener? Where are you going to take that next step to, yes, follow Jesus, but now go out and do something?
Right. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And I think we get the privilege to walk alongside of people and to watch them grow into this leadership. Yeah, it's really huge.
Yeah, so, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
So, I was going to ask, because I think this will always come up, because a lot of our people, and I know my life, like adding something else is hard. Like, how do you see these people that are, busy with family, busy with work, busy in their lives? Like, how do you see that? Like, where's the balance of that? How do they stay balanced in this?
Right, because as we were writing the description, I just looked back at it as you were talking. It's vital in your home, your workplace, and church. And we know you've got those three places. But I think it's really going into a space where you're praying about it and asking God to give you that opportunity, but not one that's going to overload you. I think for both Ty and Courtney and probably Thomas, it should be a joy too. A long time ago, we did this thing. I can't remember what it was called, but where it was bringing people that you like alongside of you and making them your volunteers. And I remember thinking, why are we at a conference for this? That seems pretty natural, right? Like, oh, I like you. I like spending time with you. You want to go do this with me? Well, it's almost the same thing. Like, if I'm serving in an area that is so not my thing, like the whole worship center redo, I couldn't envision it. I was there on a work day. I was willing to do what I could, but I couldn't be on that planning team to save my life. That's not where God has gifted me. But disaster relief, that's a place that God's gifted me, and I love it. And you've looked at me and gone, there is no way I could lead that. I don't have the capability. So I think when you're looking at your margins, leadership and where God's calling you to lead should be something that really energizes you and excites you, and not so far out of your realm that you're not joyful and excited.
Yeah. No, and I would totally agree with this. Like, if you're feeling this and it's like, oh, pastor gave me one more thing to do, that's a sign that you're not quite thinking about it quite right.
For sure.
I would say this really should be something that you would enjoy doing and is going to fill you up way more than it depletes you. Like, and I think even, the idea, I love the idea of bringing somebody in that you love doing life with. Like, that's one of the things Ty's doing. Mm-hmm. Like, he's bringing in another person and they have actually lunch one time a week together. And I actually got to go and have lunch with both of them. It was a joy to be around him. And I think their ministry, it's going to excel in its own way because the two of them bring so much joy to each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that it's going to be an extension of their being friends together that's going to flow into ministry. And I think that's how, we think about this. If you're worried about it, like, find someone if you're worried about what this looks like for you, here might be a hack for you. Find somebody that you want to, that you enjoy being with, and then the two of you start praying about how can we make an impact in God's kingdom. Right. And I think that could be a great way for you to do something. And then, worst case scenario, the ministry doesn't work, you got to hang out with your friend for a few months. And talk about ministry. And talk about life and ministry. And so I think that's one way that this could be really enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it was cool for me because I went back into my office after I set Courtney and Thomas up to talk. And then they were in there laughing and talking, but they were happy when they left. And they had their plan, and they were ready to see what God was going to do and how he was going to show that. The other piece I keep thinking about was it Babe Ruth struck out more times than he hit home runs. And we've talked about that in leadership before of, man, we just got to swing. Just swing. It's okay. It's okay if it's a strikeout. And you go, I can learn from that one. And it's okay if it's a home run. And it stuck, and it's been a blessing to our church. I think Kathy Boy's a great example of that with Advent by Candlelight. She saw it done. All of a sudden, her heart really opened up to it. She saw the ministry it could be, and she's carried that with such intentionality. So I think it's the invitation becomes allowing people to dream and encouraging them to pray and to look at what is God used this leadership for, and what is your next step going to be.
I think absolutely. I think that's so key and so important, and God has given you the gifts to do something, and so just start praying about what that might be for you. Think about who you might ask to join you. And I think too, that's where we can help as staff. Like, if you have a passion for something and you're not sure who it is, like, let us introduce you to a few people, and just see where that goes. Just in closing, I think about Percy on Sunday mornings. And Percy has a big passion to pray for you and with you for what you're preaching and what's going to happen on Sunday morning. And he would come back into the office and do that with you. And then all of a sudden, I noticed in the narthex that people are gathering and praying. And it's beautiful to watch. And they don't care who's around. Like, they just kind of grab a hand and let's go. And to me, that's the grassroots of leadership. Like, it's just do it. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of episodes. But don't wait for it to be perfect. Don't wait for it to be all the answers. But what is the passion that you have, and what are you going to do with it? Absolutely. That's it. Thanks for joining us today on Jesus Centric Leadership.